Hi, I'm going to introduce you today to downloading and installing the Workplace application. So I'm going to start by starting from the MLJS GitHub homepage, so that's where it lives. On the wiki is where you go for everything to do with documentation. This is task oriented, so I want to create a new Workplace app with drag and drop. Yep, that's what I want to do. So I'll go and follow that. It gives me a little bit of an explanation as to what it is and how to install it. So I go and download this file. Unzip it to a new directory, etc, etc. So if I click on that, that downloads the tar.gz file and unzips it. It's going to take a little while. What I'll then do is go to this directory. I'll create a place for it to go. So what is MLJS YouTube? Perhaps if you can type. There we go. So let's see if this file's downloaded yet. Nearly, and it's down. Okay, so if I go and have a look here, we'll see that we have a Workplace tar file. If I just unzip that, here we go. So we've got dist and app workplace. So app workplace is what I want. So let's move my downloads to in here and change directories to here. And then let's have a look at what's in this folder. So quite a few things in this folder. The most important thing is the README file though. So I'm just going to open that. Let's laid plans of mice and men. What this has basically got is the instructions to get this running. So first of all, what you need to do is install Node.js. Now we've already got Node.js installed on my machine, so I'll just talk you through this one. So on Windows you can just download it, Mac you can either download it or do brew install node, which is what I've done. And on Linux you can do yum install node or again download it if you're on a different type of installation. Now what Node.js is a JavaScript way of creating very fast and responsive server-side applications. I like to run the Workplace separate from MarkLogic in a Node.js layer because it's very quick for serving the static images and JavaScript files. But you can just install it in the modules database. I'll talk you later through installing it into the modules database, but for now we'll just talk about installing it raw. So once you've installed Node, what you get is a tool called npm. This is the Node package manager. So what I'm going to do is globally install MLJS. Now it knows where this is because there's a registry out there in npm world that tells you where to get MLJS from. So we'll go off and download that and install it. Once you've done that, ignore this route because this is if you're working in pre-sales on the latest and greatest, but you guys aren't, you're just working on the distribution. What you need to do now is install dependencies. So you change directory like I've done into the application folder. You then run all these things. Now I've already got these installed. All these are just different libraries that this thing requires. It'll go off, download the code, build it and install it. You'll get a few warning messages, but it'll all work fine eventually. Just let it run through the course. What we now need to do though is configure the installation for our settings. So, because of course everyone's system's different, so I happen to know that that's not where it lives. I have a VMware running. Can't remember the IP. Let's go and have a quick check. Current IP is 192.218. There we go. I want that to run on port 7209. Well, I don't want to use a documents database. I've got an existing one which I can't spell. And this is social media high performance content. And the rest of the stuff's fine, so it's not a problem. Okay. There we go. So that's what we need now. These ones here are to control the Workplace Node.js server itself, so a fallback web page and the port. So the port we're going to access the application on is 5001. That will then use a REST API on 7209. So we've configured this now, that's fine. What we now need to do though, so we've done that one, change that, save and closed the file, probably close it, that's probably what it means. So now I need to make sure I can execute all these little commands. So change mod user execute all script files. Okay, so that's all working. So now I can create a REST server instance. So I want to go now, I've edited the settings, so that's fine. I'll just go and run create REST server shell scripts, so go run that, hit enter, goes off and uses my settings, and hopefully after a few seconds you'll get a confirmation notice. It does take some time sometimes, so just bear with it. There we go, that seems to have worked fine. We get a response of 201 created, so that's worked well. Okay, so that's created our REST API in port 7209 and linked that REST API instance with our content database. So, note on security, the Node.js, MLJS web server proxies all requests from the browser to the REST API instance, and that includes support for authentication. So when we run the app, we'll get a notification to log in, for example. What we need to do now is configure search options. So we need to edit the all XML for our search options. I happen to know that's fine. And then execute this. So we need to execute that script with the name of the search options, called all, the file name locally, which is all.xml, because I'm highly imaginative, there it is there, and the format, this is XML rather than JSON. So a little bit verbose, but it works fine. So call it all.xml and XML. Run. Off it goes. There we go. 201 created. It's created those search options in the modules database. It's got documentation there if you need to go and look it up. And now what I need to do is simply just run the web server. So let's run the web server there. Get rid of this so it's out of the way so you can see properly what's going on. So you see now it's running and the MLJS web server is on 5001. So if I go here to index.html, we'll see that the workplace loads. We'll also see that we get each one of these things pop up. Now on your server you'll probably get prompted for authentication. I happen to know that the app server it's using isn't configured for authentication. So you'll get all of these pages appear. So if you go to search, hopefully it will run, and that works fine. The reason you're getting this is a problem with Safari with my tweet renderer. That's nothing to do with MLJS, it's purely me. So you can click through and execute these searches and it all works fine there. So we've got it installed, we've got it working. Future videos are going to talk through how to create all these pages from scratch. So I'll leave that for future videos. What we want to do now though is talk about how to deploy this thing if you were to deploy it with your modules database. Now what you can do is you can go to here and where is it? In here there is an apps folder with the workplace app in it. Now what you've seen is what's in the source folder being deployed through Node. What you can do instead is download or check out this entire repository and take the apps workplace folder. And what this has got is a Roxy deploy script. So in here you see you've got a deploy folder, and that is where the Roxy configuration lives. So I've already got this installed, but you simply just download that and then you configure it for your needs. So for example, if I quit out of here and go to where the app lives and open up that folder, I'll show you what's in there. So what you'd normally do is you'd configure the Roxy deployer for your particular target environment. You'd then run a bootstrap and then run a configure. So in here we see within deploy we have dev.properties. So this is why I put the IP address of what I'm working on. I think that's correct. Let's just go back and check. 218, yeah, good. Okay, so that's correct. So that's all I need to do. In build.properties there's all sorts of other settings, name of the application, which I'm going to keep as workplace, the ports it's running on, here you see 7200, so you see this is a bit more complex than the Node.js version. So you just go off and configure build.properties, and if you want dev.properties as well. And then what you do is you basically deploy it. So we're in the right folder there, so now what I can do is I can do /ml bootstrap dev, if I remember rightly, and -v to make sure that it runs in verbose mode so I can see exactly what it's doing. Now, I've already got this bootstrapped, so what bootstrapping does is it creates the REST API instances, doesn't deploy any code. So I've already got that bootstrapped, so all I need to do is ml dev deploy modules, if you can spell modules, -v. Now, you might just do ml local deploy modules if you've just edited the build.properties file. But go and have a read of the Roxy documentation for all that. But if I run this command now, what it's going to do is it's going to deploy my workplace app. So you see it deploying all the files within the workplace app into the server, and then what it does is deploy REST extensions as required. Now that's done, what I can do is I can go here to port 7200 to index.html. And what you'll see is exactly the same application, right? Because it's using the same content database, albeit a different modules database, and you see all these pages are still there. Because the pages in MLJS get stored within the content database. And the reason for that is because I didn't have to write any REST extensions to do it, which is always helpful. But just so you guys understand the search options here, in the search options, whether it's in the modules version or in the Node version, it's quite handy to have these things in here. Now, what this says is never show up in search results anything with this collection, MLJS internal data, so all the workplace page configurations in that collection, and this collection is a named graph in the triple store. Now, I happen to have already done some enrichment on this stuff to generate some interesting data, and that's in a particular named graph, and a named graph in MarkLogic is implemented as a collection. So by hiding these two collections in my content search results, I don't show any internal configuration or triples, I just show literally documents. So that's how you configure that particular thing there, you just add an additional query there. It's pretty straightforward really. And that is basically that. That's how to install the MLJS workplace application both in Node.js and into a modules database. I hope you enjoyed it and found it instructive, but again, just to recap, if you go to the MLJS GitHub page, so github.com/adamfowler.uk/MLJS, and click on Wiki, that's where all the documentation lives. Everything is linked there, so go off and have a read of that. Thanks very much for your time.